I've been thinking about comics recently. Been reading a lot more of them, thanks to DC's Absolute line of books. And there's some Marvel I still read occasionally, as well as a lot of indies. I read a lot more indie books now. And so I have been collecting reading comics for over 50 years. I'm 63, by the way. And so yeah, I guess since I was probably since the early 70s, at least late 60s, early 70s. And I grew up reading DC. And I'd walk up to our local drugstore, had a spinner rack, and I would go up there every week and buy some books, some Marvel as well. I remember buying Spider-Man and the Hulk and the Avengers. Um, Whatever that book was with Deathlock, I remember buying that. So buying that. So anyway, um, but I grew up at the dawn of the Bronze Age, end of the Silver Age. And if you know your history, going back to the 50s, Silver Age began late 50s, approximately. Began with showcase number 4, uh, The Flash returning. And what made them so popular, one of the things that got them to be so popular, is that there was a lull in superhero books for a while. You can't miss something unless it goes away for a while. Except for, I guess, Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman were still around. Maybe a few others. But when comics superheroes came back, there was this huge explosion. Marvel, introduced the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, the Avengers, and so forth. These were all new except for Captain America, who kind of hung around a while because he went into like a horror kind of thing. Captain America's Strange Tales or Weird Tales, whatever it was called, and Submariner. And they reinvented Human Torch and brought him with the Fantastic Four, and Submariner became a villain. He showed up in the Fantastic Four, Captain America, the Avengers. But DC had a larger amount of heroes to return. And they redid them. Some of the people stayed the same, Batman and Superman, but they tweaked some of the characters like that they brought back, like the Atom. In the Golden Age, the Atom was just this short guy who could fight. Well, this Atom can actually shrink. Green Lantern rather. He had a mystic lamp. This one, alien technology. People were different, reimagined, which brings us to today. The Absolute line is hot. Okay, I mean, it's stupid hot. Has been for a while. And I just brought out my review of Green Arrow, Absolute Green Arrow. And again, a great book. These are all been really well done. And if you were a publisher and all you did was publish these, you would be in good shape. I think DC missed an opportunity to do a Silver Age reboot. What if DC had canceled every single one of their books, save Detective in Action? Just cancel them for a couple months, and then brought them back out. Absolute titles. And then you could remove Batman from detective. You could remove Superman from action. And for 2 months, you had those two titles with maybe filler stories, stuff, maybe bring out like bring back an old Golden Age character, the Crimson Mask or somebody. I'm just making that up. And put them in detective for 2 issues. And maybe little previews or for the coming line, the new reboot. You could call it the Absolute Age. And then you push out these first issues, say 1 a month or 2 a month. And you keep detective and you keep action and you put Superman and Batman, the absolute versions, in those, as well as their own issues. And then slowly, after 3 months, you bring out Wonder Woman, the 4th month, 5th month, and by the time you've gotten a year, you've got your entire line back. And it's okay if you want to bring back adventure comics or more fun. I would like to see an absolute version of Dr. Midnight and Dr. Fate. Absolutely. I think that would have given a bigger shot in the arm to the comics industry in general. I still think the Absolute line's good. And it definitely is what's, given DC this huge push. But I think there was an opportunity for a grand reboot. Now, DC could have even talked to Marvel about this because God knows Marvel needs to be rebooted. I mean, this is one thing I think Marvel is lacking, is missing, is that they're missing that lull that DC had back in the 50s. Now, they were timely back then, but they didn't have any superhero books. They were doing horror and war and stuff like that. So they didn't really have but the 3 heroes that they rebooted into the Silver Age. I guess there were others, the Angel, but 3 major heroes. So it wasn't really as big a deal for them as it was for Marvel, a continuity thing. Both publishers have continuity things going on now. And I think both of them need to be rebooted. And we have a different Batman. We need a different Spider-Man. That's why the Ultimates line was such a big deal. Because it took those characters, reimagined them, and what should have happened, and I know it maybe doesn't make monetary sense in the short term, but I think the long-term survivability of comic books, you need a refresh. You need a period where you're just like, we're going to stop. It doesn't have to be for years. We're going to stop for a couple months. And when we come back, you better be here because all hell's breaking loose. And you build that anticipation and it's okay to, Peter Parker, or say, I don't know, Joe Schmo becomes Spider-Man and he's got a slightly different thing going on. And you have Peter Parker appear in like a crossover. Maybe there's like a distortion and dimensional distortion, and the old Peter Parker appears. But you got to wait. You got to give it a year or 2 before that happens. Because you've got to build these new characters. You got to give them a background. You got to give people buy-in into their story before you bring those characters back. Which is why it was good that DC waited so long before they brought back this Justice Society of America into the Justice League. I think that it was like 12 years before they did that. And, I think maybe Golden Age Flash was a little quicker. I don't know, but I know there was a big issue, the issue where they're both running towards the kid to save him. But they waited a while. They gave it a bit. So they could build Barry Allen. They could build the Justice League and have those characters be themselves. And then they Okay, now we can reintroduce the, as a cameo, the Justice Society, then cross over a couple times, and it's okay. You know. Anyway, like I said, I just felt like it was I love them. I love the Absolute books. I think it might have been a missed opportunity. Anyway, that's my thought about it. Let me hear yours. Like and subscribe. Leave me a message down there. Tell me what you think. Am I out of my flipping mind? It wouldn't work. They got to have the money. I don't know. You tell me. I'm not saying they have to, cancel every single comic they make, but I think they're all superheroes at this point. Well, you got Vertigo. You've got other lines as well. But anyway, that's enough for now. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.